to the stream. A couple of technical difficulties, but you join us at the start of the Senior Blue third heat. Anthony Cleal leading the way then for the Senior Blues as we approach the first couple of minutes gone in what is more regular than usual, a Senior Blue class visiting Clay Pigeon Raceway. Of course, this season it's been a few times, which is great to see. Good battle brewing as well between Stuart Gray and Russell O'Neill in second place. Really want to be the driver who can go off and try to challenge Anthony Cleal, who's on the warpath after being taken out. I think he was taken out right at the very start of the second heat. Across the line now does have the number one on the track and on his kart as well. Stuart Gray and Russell O'Neill in second and third, Sarita Cohn in fourth, fifth is Michael Bell with Paul Alexander sixth, seventh Richard Puddle with David Waldron eighth, ninth Robin Stoddart Stones and Nigel Vickery in 10th, Chris Underhill 11th, 12th Ron Schoen, David Good 13th, Phil Shears the novice is 14th with Dave Watt in 15th position. Webster and Kevin O'Neill both unfortunately out of proceedings. Apologies to those of you who were watching the YouTube channel of our stream there. It was disconnected a little while ago, so just had to make sure that one was rebooted once again. Around the horseshoe we go then with that battle for second. Third and fourth as well aren't too far away. No, sorry, fourth and fifth, Sarita Schoen and Michael Bell. They're not too far adrift, but I don't think it's going to make a dent in that battle for second anytime soon. They need to continue closing in by a decent margin if they're going to be involved in maybe a four-way scrap for second place, which would be brilliant from a neutral's point of view. And there we are, exactly halfway through this race, and Anthony Cleal looks to be on his way potentially to yet another victory in a race around Clay Pigeon. Can't be many blue drivers, if any, in history actually, who have played as many victories around here as Anthony Cleal has. He really knows his way around this circuit. Next up, of course, are the Dart Motorsport kart. Race number 20 this is of our 32 today. So good to see such a jam-packed schedule. And with a couple of B finals as well. Almost the most is at stake in those races, really, just to try and make it to the A final. Really do get your money's worth if you manage to get that to work out. Change as Robin Stoddart Stones moves from 9th up to 8th and Paul Alexander demoted to that position. Sarita Schoen and Michael Bell almost looks now a closer battle than the one up the road that they were attempting to catch up to is Stuart Gray and Russell O'Neill. I don't think it's looking like it's going to be such a hard-fought battle anymore. Stuart Gray a little quicker than Russell O'Neill. Sarita Schoen at the moment doing enough to keep Michael Bell at bay, and was a bit slower on that last lap as well, Bell, so Schoen will be optimistic to retain this position till the end, and it wasn't the best line there by Michael Bell either. With just under 2 minutes left on the clock, Dave Watts climbs a couple of positions, gets the better of David Good and Phil Shears. Stuart Gray and Russell O'Neill. Battle goes on for second place, although not nearly as closely fought as it was a few laps ago. The gap stands now at just under half a second, well, 0.3 of a second really. Entering our last minute of racing now, and Anthony Cleal making sure he's socially distancing from the rest of the pack. No way that anyone's going to get close enough to Cleal for him to be too worried about it. And Sarita Schoen though, and Michael Bell, that is definitely not concluded. Michael Bell really wants to get into fourth place, and Sarita Schoen making sure that she's covered enough to retain that position, at least for now. Across the line we go then, and not the final lap yet, but probably will be, yeah, the next lap I imagine should be. I'm entirely sure how the times are going to work out. Actually, it's going to be pretty tight, but Anthony Cleal doesn't have the fastest lap, but has a huge margin, over 5 seconds. Fastest lap actually belongs to 10th placed David Watts. So early collision meant that he was right at the back, has now moved himself up into 10th. And, well, setting some very quick lap times. Will be one to keep your eye out for. Is the last lap of the race now, though. And once again, Anthony Cleal finds himself on the back straight. Time for the final time before the all-important final later on. We've got first final of the afternoon as well. Race number 24. It's going to be a massive break for these drivers as they prepare for the next one. So much racing you now get over the course of the day here at Clay Pigeon. But that is an imperative, impressive victory from Anthony Cleal. Didn't put a foot wrong for the whole race and wins in the end by 5.07 of a second. Stuart Gray and Russell O'Neill in second and third. Sarita Schoen was able to hold off Bell, and in fact Bell was demoted down to 6th as Richard Peddle was able to get up into 5th place in the end. David Waldron 7th, 8th Robin Stoddart Stones, with Dave Watts in 9th, and 10th Chris Underhill. Fastest lap also went to Dave Watts. But a great victory for Anthony Cleal. He'll be hoping for more of the same in the final, and those other blue drivers will be hoping to prevent that occurrence. last heat for Dart Motorsport class is out, and each of those drivers ready and raring to go as they make their way around the circuit. Definitely the loudest of each of the classes we've got here today is these 4-stroke karts back on the track for the third time. Making sure they stay in order. They won't accelerate until they are absolutely sure they're allowed to. There will be any second now. And here we go then. Away they go. It's the number 6 of James Reeve who starts at the front. There's a little bit of argy-bargy in the middle of the pack there as they head down towards Billy's blind, but everyone seems to just about get away with getting through that first corner unscathed. A couple of carts chopping and changing positions, but it's red and yellow flag actually. I spoke about lesser seen flags earlier on today with the green and yellow chevron restart flag, and unless I'm very much mistaken, that's the slippery surface flag that's being displayed there at the hairpin, so maybe there was an oil spillage or some such similar incident there, which the drivers need to be notified of. I'll tell you, it's definitely not, it's rain. We go across the line, it's Charlie French who's in the lead. A brilliant start from French actually to enable himself to have that much of a gap back to Archie Sherwood, who's also got a bit of a gap for himself, but nowhere near as dramatic as James Reeve and Lewis Nurse. Also right up there, side by side, going into the hairpin, and yeah, you can see that oil spill, how that's been covered up well by the marshals, but definitely drivers need to be careful, as one of the drivers drove straight over it, kicking up that dust there. That would have been a fantastic photo. Across the line we go then, with them of course to Charlie French, who I don't think we've seen a huge amount of French at the very front of the pack over the course of the day. Often Archie Sherwood and Lewis Nurse has been the story today. Nurse taking victory in Heat 2, and I believe it was Sherwood who was able to win in the first one. Now we could be on for a third different winner here out of 8 karts. That makes a pretty impressive display, but he's still got a long way to go yet. Archie Sherwood though just doesn't seem to quite have the pace at the moment. Charlie French leading well. Now they come up the top end then, the back half of the grid, separated by very little indeed. Nick Williams has got a 0.94 second deficit back from Lewis Nurse, but has Fitch, Reeve and Williams really close behind. Each of those 4 karts separated by just half a second. Number 3 just diving in there, Chris Williams, making sure that he can get there in time and get up into 7th place, ahead of Jack Reeve. Charlie French and Sherwood now, and was that a bit of a mistake from Charlie French? I did hear tyres squealing around the horseshoe. Wonder if it was our race leader, because suddenly 0.36 of a second Archie Sherwood is caught up, where it looks on the previous lap as though French was going to continue getting away and Sherwood wasn't closing in on the race leader, but now all of a sudden Sherwood right on the back of the number 42 and could be put under some real pressure here. Charlie French, Dart Motorsport's number 2, looking to try and get out of his number 2 position. Into the final 5 minutes now, just over 3 minutes gone of this 8-minute heat, and French and Sherwood, once again Sherwood closing in by 3/10. That's a significant margin. But Charlie French will be determined to make sure that trend stops as soon as possible. Lewis Nurse has got past James Reeve and into 3rd now. Don't think he's going to have much of a shot of getting into the top 2 because of French and Sherwood's significant gap back to him, but Looks like he's cost himself a bit of time there as well, actually, Archie Sherwood, because suddenly that gap's a lot bigger than it was. It was only 0.14 of a second going over the line of the previous lap. I suspect it's quite a lot more than that now, probably closer to maybe 3 or 4 tenths. Go across the line. What is the gap? Well, yeah, it's over half a second now. So, small mistakes from each of those drivers cost them in different ways. Charlie French initially in letting that gap drop, and Sherwood getting one of the corners ever so slightly wrong, which enabled Charlie French to open that gap back up again. It's an intriguing battle for sure, as Lewis Nurse just trying to do his hardest to catch up to the pair. He was 0.6 of a second quicker than Sherwood on that previous lap. That is significant. And what we know is likely, of course, is that Sherwood and Nurse are going to be alongside each other on the front row in the final. Whoever gets the first corner best there really could be in charge of things. Chris Williams and Nick Williams, though, have both taken to the pits, and we are down to just 6 drivers now in this Dart Motorsport heat finale. Lewis Nurse in 3rd, 4th place. James Reeve with Joseph Fitch and Jack Reeve is the order for the rest of the karts, and not many of them are that close together apart from the top 2. Archie Sherwood has once again got himself right behind Charlie French, and has he dived up the inside here? He has indeed. He's into the lead of the race, and for the first time the number 42 of Charlie French isn't leading. Well, that was obviously minus maybe the first lap or 2, but he's led ever since then, and now 7 or 8 laps later he has finally conceded that position to Archie Sherwood, who's now in the lead of this race and seeking his 2nd victory of the day. And already that gap has been opened up significantly back to Charlie French. A small mistake that Archie Sherwood made a couple of laps ago looked costly, but does have superior pace to the number 42, and it showed there. 36.66, the effort from Sherwood. Particular effort, the fastest lap of the race. All of a sudden, it looks fairly set in stone who's going to be the top 3. That's a lap or so ago. Joseph Fitch getting past James Reeve there in a battle for 4th. Sure whether they're going to swap back over or not. It seems James Reeve, as well as Charlie French in the similar overtake, has just fallen behind. He's being overtaken, dropped off quite a bit as an initial kind of gap, and then maintaining that gap a little bit more, but French has struggled since being overtaken by Archie Sherwood, and indeed was 0.37 of a second slower than Sherwood on the previous lap, and 3.2 seconds slower than Lewis Nurse as well. Into our final 30 seconds though, so next lap will be the last one. Archie Sherwood leads away and is surely on his way to a victory. Can't imagine a scenario in which he doesn't win. Charlie French and Lewis Nurse in 2nd and 3rd. Top end, and really the only other change we're not even likely but possible to see would be a change for 2nd. French and Nurse. Nurse has closed in a lot over the past few laps. I don't think he's going to have enough time to do it though, but what a victory this will be for Archie Sherwood to surely secure pole as well. Heading down and around the hairpin once more. Will Lewis Nurse have enough time to create a last gasp opportunity for himself to get past French, who will already be disappointed that of course he's fallen to 2nd, would be very disappointed himself if he ended up finishing 3rd, but I don't think he's going to do it. He's going to hold on, but it is a very impressive victory for Archie Sherwood. Wins the race, takes the fastest lap, and a brilliant performance from Dart Motorsport's number 2. French and Nurse in 2nd and 3rd. Nurse just unable to get past in the end, and that will surely pit him on the outside of Archie Sherwood in the final. Joseph Fitch in 4th, 5th James Reeve and Jack Reeve in 6th place. 2 retirements, of course, Chris Williams and Nick Williams on the 7th and 9th lap of the eventual 14-lap race. Next up will be the Junior Rotax. Their 4th heats, the first of just 2 4th heats, which will be going one after the other. Senior Rotax will round off our heats today in the race after this next one. A massive grid and a highly competitive class awaits on the track as the Junior Max are seconds away from being underway. And indeed, that's what we are, underway with the 4th and final heat of the Junior Max. Ethan Lomax alongside Jack Meakin on the front row. A little bit of a slide there from Ethan Lomax, but a brilliant start from him. I think it's Lomax. It might actually be Jack Meakin who's had the better launch off the front row and around the first couple of corners. Heading into the horseshoe we go then. Is the number 97 is indeed Ethan Lomax, who's had a fantastic start already, establishing a bit of a gap for himself. We've seen that in several races today actually. One of the drivers at the front few gets himself a very healthy gap quite early on, but Lucas Hayden, Leo Lecastro in 2nd and 3rd. Jack Meakin actually drops to 4th with Noah Hadley in 5th, 6th Joe Linden, George Walker 7th, 8th Jake Shuri with Cameron Crockett in 9th, and 10th Tristan Rennie. That is your current top 10 standings after just the one lap, of course. Top 5 are separated by very little, and then there is a visible but pretty small gap back to Joe Linden. But let's see how things are across the line. Once again, things seem to be swapping pretty dramatically in this race, from driver not seeming in contention at all, and then suddenly they're right towards the front. There's no giving up though for each of these drivers yet. They're all bunched so close together. Now to the top end we come then. The leading 5 very close together indeed. Let's see what the gap is between each of them as they go over the line. Indeed, pretty close. 0.3 of a second back to Lucas Hayden, but then 0.08, 0.16, 0.14. Pretty much nothing to separate them, and they're so close. You have to be biting your nails each time they go around a corner, because you just think there's an accident waiting to happen in there somewhere. The entire field is barely dispersed at all. I have no idea really with how each of the results have been, who's most likely to be taking pole in the A final. It should be the 3rd from last race of the day, race number 30. Race 25, their B final. A few of these drivers will of course be involved in that one as well. Top few of which will sit right at the back of the Junior Rotax A final. Ethan Lomax still leading the way for the moment, but has got Jack Meakin, Joe Linden, Noah Hadley, Lucas Hayden all for company other than that, far away from the illustrious position. Leo Licantro as well, he's not too far away either in 6th place, but he's about 0.3 seconds behind. Lucas Hayden as well in 5th is about 0.3 seconds off as well, so maybe we could say it's a four-way battle, but really you look at the field and you think anyone down to about 10th place could still feasibly win this, especially if there's a few accidents and incidents along the way. Lomax continues to lead and had such a healthy lead at the start. It has been reduced now, but still holding on to that place and looking very viable to do so. No troubles in the race lead here, and having a look on the inside is Jack Meakin. I think he has managed to find his way through as they head into the S's. Oh, everyone just about squeezes through there and gets away with it, but I think it is Jack Meakin who's found himself into the race lead, you know. I think he has done it. A fairly simple manoeuvre going into Billy's, one of the more favourable places to overtake on this circuit. See where Lomax is as they head out of the top end once again. Almost nothing to separate them, all the way down to about 9th place or so. That's the line we go. It is Meakin ahead of Linden with Hadley in 3rd, 4th Ethan Lomax with Lucas Hayden, Leo Ricastro, Tristan Rennie and Harry Reynolds, who's a little bit further back, but Rennie really the last driver as a part of that top 7, of which pretty much not a part at all. Front bumper might as well be hooked on the rear bumper of the kart in front at this point, because they really are that close, all on such similar pace. Having a look up the inside, trying to get himself into the lead in the race for the first time, Joe Linden, and he's done it. Trying to follow that through as well and get into 2nd, Noah Hadley, and he squeezes his way through as well. Meakin falls to 3rd. Joe Linden now, our new race leader, with Noah Hadley in 2nd place. So 3 different race leaders in the opening 5 minutes. Let's see as we tick down in the 5th minute now of racing. Linden with Noah Hadley, Jack Meakin in 3rd, 4th is Ethan Lomax with Tristan Rennie and Lucas Hayden. As the running out of your top 6 there. Callum Poison, Harry Reynolds, Leo Castro, and then Jordan Morris as your current top 10. Top 3, look how competitive that is as well. Joe Linden getting into the lead, but absolutely not running away with it. Noah Hadley giving him a run for his money, that's for sure. And won't be giving up on that as well as Jack Meakin. He will be determined to get that race lead back. 4th place and getting a little bit further away from the drivers behind, but not quite with the top 3 yet, is Tristan Rennie, who's picked his way through the field brilliantly. Started in the middle of the pack and now up into 4th place. He'll be hoping for a top 3 finish by the end of this one. It looks very feasible at this stage that he may well get that. As Ethan Lomax, by the way, drops 5 positions on that previous lap, so was swamped somewhat by the drivers as Lomax falls to 8th. No changes in the top 7, but Jordan Morris overtaking Ethan Lomax and a change for 8th. Joe Linden leading the way, Noah Hadley and Jack Meakin. Who's it going to be with these top 3, with Tristan Rennie not far behind as well? Linden and Hadley are at the front though. At the moment it looks like Linden is just driving intelligently enough that he's keeping Hadley at bay, and the pace is similar enough between the two that doesn't need to be too concerned, Joe Linden. Well, maybe he's going to have a go there, Jack Meakin at the inside of Billy's, but Noah Hadley holds firm and makes sure that he retains 2nd for at least another couple of corners. 45 seconds left on the clock, so certainly make it around at least one more time before the final lap, where if things are going to get hairy, that is when it will be. There's a big gap now back to 5th place. 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th having a brilliant squad. All Hayden, Boysen, Reynolds and Morris, all of whom you could point at and say, yeah, they'll be a favourite for the race later on, but with both the junior and the senior Rotax, the classes are so competitive with so many quick drivers that you really can never know until the very last lap who's likely to go ahead and take a win, and even then it's often too early to tell. Linden continuing to leave Hadley. I don't think we are going to have any last lap drama here. It does seem as though this race order is going to pan out the way of the penultimate lap as well, as we head across the line to begin the last lap. Joe Linden still in the race lead. Are we going to get a tiny bit of last lap drama? Tristan Rennie is right on the back of Jack Meakin, who would have been annoyed that he's lost out, but couldn't have lost out to much better drivers really. Linden and Hadley have proved that on several occasions, and out of the top end we come then. It is going to be victory, a very well earned victory, but for Joe Linden then, wins in the junior max with Noah Hadley in second, third Jack Meakin with Tristan Rennie in fourth, fifth is Callum Boyson with Harry Reynolds sixth, seventh Jordan Morris, eighth Lucas Hayden, Ethan Lomax in ninth, and tenth Leola Castro. It's time for the final heat of the day, and it comes in the form of the Senior Max. Thomas Rotherham looks to be alongside Dan Burt on the front row, Elliot Pickard and Maciej Hamera third and fourth. Brief stint as a commentator alongside me, Maciej, but returning back to the track where he's arguably an even better racer than he is commentator. Here we are then, ready to get underway, and we do get underway now with our final heat of the day. Big incident though, lots of karts wrapped up in it. All seem to be latched onto one another, determined to get going again, but a lot of them still intertwined. It seems that was a incident between mostly drivers who were already towards the back anyway on the grid. Across the line we go then. Our early leaders look to be Dan Burt and Maciej Hamera in second, Ethan Ling in third, fourth Archie Brown, who's climbed 6 positions actually, a brilliant first lap from him, and similar story to Zachary Arthur, who's up 6 to 6. Gaining 7 is Dominic Cousins, and another huge winner is Dylan Ruick, who has climbed 8 places up to 12th now. What a first lap that is, to claim 8 positions. A lot of these drivers will be fighting for pole position, some just to get into the A final, and some of each of those different particular aims may well be in this pack that we're seeing from first all the way down to realistically about 10th, and then a bit further on to 14th as well, is pretty much the entirety of the group. But I have to nearly wince sometimes as the karts head around the corners. You just think there's no way they're all going to make it around there. It really is bumper to bumper, truly entertaining stuff with the front runners as things stand. Dan Burt at the front, Hamera, Ling and Brown just in behind. 11th place. He overtook Elliot Paul, but then Reese Hurd and Zachary Arthur swapping around as well in 6th and 7th. Not actually that many changes on that previous lap in terms of the race order, but there could be a very significant one at the front though, as number 11 Maciej Hamera finds his way through, and Hamera leads this race for the first time. A well-crafted move, and Dan Burt, who just went on the outside, I'm not even sure he knew that Hamera was there, but Hamera made that decision to dive up the inside, and he gets himself in the lead of the race. That is his reward, as Burt finds himself now in 2nd. Archie Brown and Ethan Ling are in 3rd and 4th. In 5th place is Reese Hurd, having now got past Elliot Pickard. He's had a pretty decent race so far, hasn't he, Reese Hurd today? The number 14 of Elliot Pickard loses a position, but he's in a decent squabble as well, a little bit further back. It definitely has seen a story of the top 5 now. Kind of break off from the rest of the pack, but still very close with a lot of drivers further down the order. Reese Hurd is the driver right at the back of that current group, and then a little bit further back is Elliot Pickard trying to defend himself from Tomsit and Haynes. Yellow flags waving for an incident at the hairpin as a couple of karts come together there. A few karts into the pits as well. Looks like William Ellswood, Tom Adams and Derek Hunt are unfortunately out of this one. Hamera, Burt, Brown, Hurd, Ling, Pickard, Shinner, Arthur, Cousins and Hall is your current order. Well, a few drivers are in the pits, aren't they? It looks like this has been such an accident-filled heat as Brandon Hay goes across the line. Very surprisingly in 17th, he must have been involved maybe in that incident at the hairpin on a couple of laps ago. And each of those incidents, you think, well, there's 3 heats for each driver, it's going to make a massive difference. That difference in grid position could be absolutely crucial. And Hamera leads the way, continues to pull away as well, really knows his stuff. Does the young man in the number 11. Dan Burt, Archie Brown and Reese Hurd, Ethan Ling still there as well. But at the moment Hamera has got a pretty decent gap back to 2nd place Dan Burt. Across the line, there you go. Reese Hurd and Ethan Ling both overtaking Archie Brown there, so the number 72 of Brown drops to 5th. Onto the Sturmy Straight they go once again. Brown looking to try and reclaim some of those positions, but it looks as though Hurd and Ling are both quicker. Initial conclusion to be drawn from Brown being overtaken from those 2 drivers. That gap forming relatively quickly, but Brown has caught up, to be fair to him. This continual fight for 2nd place, you don't get the feeling is going to subside anytime soon, as Maciej Hamera continues to almost run away with it now. 1.1 seconds back to Dan Burt. From Archie Brown there is a 1.92 second gap back to Spencer Shinner as dives up the inside. A great move from Archie Brown there to reclaim 4th. Ethan Ling is the victim of it, and he'll fall to 5th place. Really late on the brakes there at the horseshoe. Seems to make that decision on the fly, and it really paid off for Archie Brown. With nearly 6 minutes gone, looks very good for Maciej Hamera. Burt, Hurd, Brown and Ling, the rest of your current top 5, and I think Ling's retaken that position now, but he's going to dive back on the inside. Brown, it never looked 100% done, and Brown reclaims 4th place. There's a few changes further down the order as well, as Thomas Rotherham and Teddy Clinton get the better of Ben Page, but to see Teddy Clinton this far down the order after such brilliant form to claim the victory in the 3rd heat, well, that is a bit surprising, I have to say. I was expecting Teddy Clinton to be pushing out into maybe around the top 8 by now, but such an incident-filled race, always going to be difficult to pick up the pieces from the drivers who would have just gotten away unscathed at the business end of the field. He's delighted with his current position out there on the track, Maciej Hamera, but Dan Burt has been consistently second place. He has been under some decent pressure over the course of this race, but ultimately Brown, Ling and Hurd haven't been able to really challenge Burt enough to make him concede that position. Indeed, that is the order now. Archie Brown ahead of Ethan Ling and Rhys Hurd, both of whom overtook Rhys Hurd on that previous lap, so finds himself a couple of positions further down than he would have hoped. Spencer Shinner, meanwhile, has latched right onto the back of that group. Done really well to close that gap down to just half a second. But with only 20 seconds left on the clock, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference to any changes in position. Dan Burt in second place, consistently in second place for a fair while now. I think Archie Brown was second for a short time, but Burt has held this not quite on the same level as Maciej Hamera in terms of raw pace, but certainly doing a good enough job to hold on to that second place for now. Last lap of the race it is, as the race leader heads onto the Sturmey straight once more. Burt, Brown, Ling and Hurd remains the order, takes a very defensive line. Does Archie Brown, he really doesn't want to concede to Ethan Ling. Yet another occasion where Ling potentially would get the better of him, as we head into buttons for the final time. 4 karts, bumper to bumper. It's going to be an extremely impressive performance from Maciej Hamera, who takes the win. Across the line, it is going to be in third place. It is just about Archie Brown and Ethan Ling and Rhys Hurd and Spencer Schiller. No changes in order in the end, but side by side, and Ling very nearly overtaken by Rhys Hurd at the end there, but himself was also very close to overtaking Archie Brown. So 3 karts separated by 0.07 of a second. Really exciting finish. And Maciej Hamera, though, storms the victory. 2.39 seconds his advantage in the Senior Max 4th heat. And that is a breathless way to end each of the heats. We'll be back after the lunch break to start the finals. Final that will first be up is the Formula Blue. I'll be back with you very soon. first final of the day then is going to be the Formula Blues, and it's Michael Bell alongside Sarita Schoen on the front row. A few drivers a little bit further back who you'd certainly expect to be towards the front end, and are either unlucky or underperformed in the heats. Imagine as the race goes on, and we will see a couple of the drivers a little bit further down climb their way back up towards the top spots. Our second formation lap hopefully will result in a race start this time. Let's see then as the Formula Blues get yet another final at Clay Pigeon Raceway underway. And here we are with our first final, our first race, which will be 12 minutes long today. Each of the heats were 8 minutes. This definitely is going to be a little bit longer for each of the finals. B final should be slightly reduced length, but it's a long time. Got to have a lot of stamina and fitness as a driver to compete at the highest level for that long. It's a significant number of laps, especially having already completed 3 heats at 8 minutes long. Here we go then with the top few coming across the timing line to complete their first lap, and well, it was very tight going across the line. Let's just see what the order is. It's Sarita Schoen who leads the way with Michael Bell in second, and Stuart Gray, Dave Watts in third and fourth. Richard Puddle, Russell O'Neill, Robin Stones, Ron Schoen round out your current top 8. It's very tight with the top 6 or so though. Not much to separate them at all as Sarita Schoen continues to lead the way round, and we've seen good pace from Sarita Schoen at various stages today, but often hasn't quite picked up the highest position. Good enough to get on the front row though, so absolutely credit to that. Maybe just needs to be a little bit more aggressive to keep those drivers at bay. And number 3, that is of Dave Watts actually, I think has climbed into second place now, so brilliant corner there to clamber up a couple of positions. Now all over the back of Sarita Schoen is indeed Dave Watts, so getting past both Michael Bell and Stuart Gray in one swoop it seems. Out of the top end, looking into the bright blue sky of that top end as they head down towards Billy. Sarita Schoen taking a fairly defensive line there, really doesn't want to be passed at the first corner on the circuit, and onto the Sturmey straight once again now, as giving a fair amount to think about is Dave Watts in second position. So my screen just loading there to tell me the right information would be useful. Stuart Gray, Michael Bell and Richard Puddle as your current top 5. Russell O'Neill is also right there as well, the number 6 in 6th. Go into buttons now. See the race leaders as they come out of top end. The exit to this corner so crucial to get that speed heading down towards the first corner. In the race leader is Dave Watts. Sarita Schoen down into third now with Stuart Gray in second position. All of the top 7 separated by the finest of margins. As he heads down the pit straight once again, Anthony Cleal has picked his way up the field and now in 7th place, has all the quick drivers ahead of him, and has already picked off one of them by getting past the number 5 of Michael Bell, who really hasn't had the start he would have envisioned, being, I think, on pole position, Michael Bell, but has now fallen to 7th place, not quite the pace that he would have been hoping for in this final. As number 4 defends once again, Sarita Schoen defending this time from Richard Puddle in the number 24, who's seeking a way past, but Watts and Gray beginning to get away now from that set of 5 drivers, as up the inside goes Puddle on Schoen, and I think that's looked a fairly comfortable manoeuvre. Just got to keep it tidy around Horseshoe, which he does, and Sarita Schoen moves down into 4th now as Russell O'Neill and Anthony Cleal are the next two opponents to be breathing down the number 4's neck. Across the line we go then, Dave Watts and Stuart Gray, first and second. They're making a pretty decent go of this. They get away from that pack. They head down towards the hairpin, and obviously goes without saying to be watching Anthony Cleal at all times. He's up into 4th now, making very decent progress indeed. Seems to be the quickest driver on the circuit, although the quickest lap time actually belongs to our race leader Dave Watts. So the number 3 continuing to impress in this race. Might not have started on the front row, but managed to pick off several early positions in an impressive manner as Anthony Cleal dives down the inside and makes the move before they even get to Billy. Richard Puddle has to concede that position, and just the amount of overspeed, the brilliant exit speed at the top end helped Anthony Cleal to that one, as Richard Puddle attempts, or has a little look and sees whether maybe he should attempt to try and reclaim that position, but decides against it. Anthony Cleal clearly the quicker driver at this moment in time. Sarita Schoen, Russell O'Neill and Michael Bell still having a good little fight as well in behind. That was now for 5th position, each of those 3 drivers, which includes 2 of the front row, both of the front row sitters in that group now battling between 5th and 7th. So not always the be all and end all, the grid positions and the heats. It's all about these finals and the championship points they generate. Doesn't seem like there's much to do with the top 2 at the moment. That gap stayed pretty consistent. Stuart Gray was ever so slightly quicker than race leader Watts on that previous lap, but barely worth talking about really, only just over half a tenth. Half a second is the gap between them, and then it's a 1.8 second gap back to Anthony Cleal, who's just set the fastest lap in the race at 37.03. Probably would expect Anthony Cleal now with that clear air in front of him, without anyone to try and have to pick off to climb up the order, that he would start setting the times that his pace would indicate he can. Richard Puddle, having fallen to 4th, certainly doesn't lack pace by any means, but you can see the difference between Anthony Cleal and Puddle now. That gap already seems fairly open. Sarita Schoen still trying to keep Bell and Russell O'Neill behind, having a good little tussle actually. First, second and third looking more equally distanced now. Stuart Gray actually lost quite a bit of time to Dave Watts on the previous lap, was 2/10 slower than the race leader. As a result, that gap has opened up and leaves him more vulnerable to any kind of attack that Anthony Cleal may have planned. Onto the semi-straight we go then. Race leader Dave Watts with a lead of exactly a second from that previous lap. I can imagine that would open up a little bit more. I don't know whether Stuart Gray just made a small mistake which has suddenly cost him a little bit of time, and as a result Dave Watts has been able to pull away. Out to the top end we go then with our race leader, and crosses the line does Dave Watts almost on the stroke of 4 o'clock. Clock hits 4 as we begin our 13th lap of the race. Stuart Gray and Anthony Cleal remain in second and third. I don't know whether there's much doing in terms of changing of positions. Fairly certainly indicate that Anthony Cleal is the quickest of the 3. Dave Watts is probably second quickest. Whether that will result in a change of positions, who knows? We've still got over 3 minutes, so about a quarter of the race still left to go, but it doesn't seem like anyone's going to be able to get Dave Watts out of the chance of winning this race. I'm pretty sure he should be good to take the victory here. Sarita Schoen, Russell O'Neill and Michael Bell are 5th, 6th and 7th. 8th is Nigel Vickery with David Waldron 9th, and 10th Paul Alexander. interfere a little bit though for Stuart Gray. As Anthony Cleal loses in, not by huge amounts, but on the previous lap, no, it was a huge amount, half a second. I didn't realise it would have been that much on one lap. Continue doing that, then there's pretty much no hope for Stuart Gray, but I think that was probably a bit of an anomaly to catch up by that much in one lap. But having said that, Anthony Cleal clearly is the quicker of the two at the moment. That gap is getting smaller and smaller, and he's still got to hold on for 120 seconds as Stuart Gray, plus the extra lap, of course. Now he's having a real go. Stuart Gray, Anthony Cleal wants his second place. He probably knows now that first is completely away from him. There's going to be no way to catch up to Dave Watts, but second place very much still a distinct possibility. Across the line we go then with the race leader and Stuart Gray and Anthony Cleal very close together now. The gap just 0.1 of a second. Will Cleal be able to get past Gray before that checkered flag is presented to Dave Watts? Not a huge amount of time left in it now, less than a minute in fact on that clock. Get past the back marker pretty comfortably. Does Stuart Gray, Anthony Cleal may have been held up a little bit, but the two of them now really close together as Anthony Cleal has a little look at the inside, drifts out a bit too wide though. And Stuart Gray is able to reclaim that position as quickly as he lost it. So did have second place for a matter of seconds, Anthony Cleal, but Stuart Gray able to come back at him. Will there be another chance for Cleal to get back into the lead? Oh, a bit of a gap has formed between the pair actually. Dave Watts is cruising to a victory here. 3.2 seconds is his advantage back to this ongoing battle. Across the line goes the battle for second with just under 5 seconds left on the clock as they do it. So next lap will be the last lap. Maybe Cleal will spend this lap just getting himself into the best possible position, then last lap properly go for it. Into the hairpin though, he's attacking around the outside of the hairpin. Not very often you see that, but going into the horseshoe now, he didn't have enough momentum to carry him up into the inside line. Around buttons we go. Stuart Gray once again has a slightly better exit there, but Dave Watts will come across the line to begin the last lap of the race. And now Stuart Gray and Anthony Cleal. Who's it going to be between these two drivers? They both have longevity in the championship and know their way around the circuit. Can't knock either of them in terms of experience, but you can perhaps say that Cleal has been a little bit quicker over the course of the day and indeed this race, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think Gray's created too much of a gap, goes defensively in the horseshoe, and who can blame him? It's all about the exit now at the top end. Will Cleal be able to produce some magic right at the end here as Dave Watts with a fantastic victory, comfortable really for him, and it will be second place, a well-earned second place for Stuart Gray with Anthony Cleal in third. Fourth goes to Richard Puddle with Sarita Schoen. Does she just about hold on to fourth? Yes, with Russell O'Neill sixth. David Waldron, Nigel Vickery and Michael Bell. In the end there's no change in that order, but Chris Underhill in 10th position, Paul Alexander in 11th, 12th Ron Schoen, Kevin O'Neill 13th, 14th David Good and 15th Phil Shears. No dramatic late changes in the order. It always looked like it was possible to happen, but nothing was ever going to happen to Dave Watts as he wins the race by nearly 5 seconds. Comfortable victory and a brilliant performance from the number 3. of the 30 or so junior Macs that have signed on to this meeting, we may only be seeing 6 out on the track. There are actually 7 on the grid, but it looks like one of the karts hasn't made it to the grid, so 6 karts out there, but the top 4 get a great reward, and that is heading into the A final, which will be later on, a few races time actually. Race number 30. Next up will be the Senior Rotax B final, and likewise top 4 will go through there as well. So only 2 to be eliminated. At the moment looks like Ashton French and James Matraves are those drivers, but still an awful long time left to go. They are at the moment eliminated, with Travis Chapman, Evie Poulain, Brentley Sims and Daniel Beards as the 4 going through. Always going to be difficult, of course, for any novice drivers to make it to the A final, because in each of the heats they always start right at the back. But Evie Poulain wasn't far away from getting into the A final. Only 1 or 2 positions off, and well, in the lead of this one now. Has perhaps a bit more history with motorsport than the other 2 novices. Very familiar with the sight of a kart. And now is sitting in a kart that leads the rest of the pack. So Evie Poulain leading from Travis Chapman. Daniel Beards and Brentley Sims are the other drivers who are currently on course and are going through to the A final. Down towards Billy's we go then, and a potential manoeuvre being made here, but they touch and there's a spin. Couldn't quite find a way through, and that is the end of the race for the driver that's just facing the wrong way at the moment. Who is it? The number 53, I think that says. That's Ashton French. Yeah, I think that's definitely the end of the race for French. I would have thought. Can't see there's any response to that. Was making a potentially good manoeuvre up the inside of Brentley Sims, but Sims just left no gap whatsoever, nowhere for French to go, and as a result, I think that 6th place solidified unless something happens further up the road. Unfortunately for Ashton French, I thought it was a very fair move to try and make, but just nowhere to go when they reach the S's. Out to the top end, the front runners go. At the moment, looks like a fairly solid top 4 going through. Evie Poulain is currently leading the way, with Chapman and Beards racing hard in 2nd and 3rd. The last thing they want to do is tangle with each other, jeopardise either of the others' chances of going through. I'm sure the drivers will be more than aware that if they do get through to the A final, of course, they can have a go at each other all over again. As into the horseshoe we go, a little bit of the back kicking out there for Daniel Beards. Not quite the grip they would have hoped for. This will be one of the shorter finals that we'll see, just 8 minutes long, and we're already nearly up a halfway stage of that. Now that is a lot of physical work if the drivers from here, the ones who will progress into the A final. As up the inside goes Daniel Beards on Travis Chapman. Surely that is a completed move there. It is indeed. He's up into 2nd place now, Daniel Beards, but as I was saying, a very physical toll taken on the drivers who do make it through. That is a lot of fitness for one day. Constant exercise being in a kart. The G-force, the controlling of the kart. You have to put all the effort into the kart turning at the end of the day. You physically are responsible for turning that heavy piece of machinery, so always going to take a toll on the arms. And having 3 8-minute heats, an 8-minute final, and then a further 8 12-minute final is going to require some kind of physical stability from those who make it there. Across the line we go with Daniel Beards and Travis Chapman then in 2nd and 3rd. Brentley Sims at the moment in 4th place will be dead last on the back of the A final grid, but getting through to the A final, enough of an achievement. Sure would be pretty happy with the race ending about here, I would have thought, but at the moment James Maltraves and Ashton French look to be the two that are eliminated. Certainly Ashton French, I don't think there's much likelihood there, but indeed Maltraves as well. Unfortunately, I think that gap is just too big now, and we pretty much have our answer for who the top 4 and the 4 progressing are going to be. Evie Poulain leading the way pretty comfortably. Quarter of a second quicker than Daniel Beers on that previous lap. Comfortably the quickest out there on the track at the moment. Made a name for herself in several of the heats. I'm quite surprised to see her in this B final, to be honest. Raced pretty well and several times over the course of the day. So I'm sure she'll be very happy to progress to the A final. We'll be starting 4th from last if things finish as they are, of course, but doesn't put nail in the coffin in terms of progression further up the field. What a race that's going to be, by the way, the Junior Rotax A final, race number 30 today. Sure, that's going to be quite the spectacle. Across the line, and with the fastest lap as well of the race so far, already held the fastest laps. This is personal best, is just improving upon that. It's a 35.56, very respectable lap time from our current race leader, with Daniel Beard a 35.77, 35.95 and 35.9 as well by Brentley Sims. These are all still very respectable lap times. There's nothing that indicates these drivers are significantly off the pace of those who have already progressed to the A final. Some of them really could make some decent progress in that race in a few races' time. Well, laps completed for each of these drivers then. Ashton French just comes across the line to confirm that now. Is going to be Maltraves and French, unfortunately, out of proceedings here. The 2 novice drivers, or 2 of the 3 that are in the Junior Max class at the moment. I'm sure each of those 3 drivers will be itching for the days where they can take that black plate off and put the red with white numbers on. Same colour scheme, of course, at the senior TKM used to sport. A regular fixture here at Clay Pigeon Raceway. Across the line and beginning the last lap of the race, lap number 15 it'll be, is Evie Poulain. We've known for quite some time now who the top 4 are going to be, and indeed very certain as well as to who the race winner is going to be. And Evie Poulain has not put a foot wrong in this race, absolutely deserves to be latched on to the back of the grid of the A final, as do the other drivers too. Nothing to say why any of them wouldn't be able to get their way further up the order. Poulain wins, puts her place in the A final later on, as does Daniel Beers. Travis Chapman in 3rd, who may be a little bit disappointed that he let 2nd slip through his fingers, with Brentley Sims in 4th, and unfortunately those 4 finishing in those places does signal the end of the day for James Maltraves and Ashton French, who was involved in the only bit of close contact between any of the drivers, with that collision with Brentley Sims early on. And that's the end of your first B final. One more B final remains, and it is the next race. Senior Rotax B final up next. an identical sized grid then for this senior Rotax B final, and surprisingly Tom Adams hasn't made the cut to get into the A final. Neither has Ben Page, who's shown at several stages today that he can have a lot of race pace. Once again, 4 of these drivers will go through, so at least one novice will be through to the A final, which will be the last race of the day. But we are now underway in this 8-minute B final. Tom Adams off the front row. You'd expect him to be a strong favourite, really. Jack Maidment alongside has had a pretty good, maybe good display of himself. Ben Page is up into 2nd position. And once again, identical scenario to that of the Junior Max. The top 4 progress and just join the back of the grid on their respective A finals. Having a little look up the inside there is Jack Maidment on Ben Page, and having a little look, couldn't quite get late enough on the brakes there to make that manoeuvre to try and reclaim 2nd. And now has a bit of pressure from Joseph Hawkwood as well, who's right there at the moment. It's the only drivers who are really squabbling are those who are already in the qualification places. Numbers 92 and 25 look to be going out as things stand, unfortunately. Bertie Wellesley and Thomas Marston, who currently on the verge of not progressing past this B final. They head on to the Sturmey Straight though, and looking to try and catch up to the rest of the pack. But Tom Adams, you'd expect to go on and win this from here. Was on the front row and established a bit of a gap for himself now as well. A decent margin between himself and Ben Page, a gap of which is already over a second. Now it's up to 1.18 of a second. Jack Maidment and Joseph Hawkwood just battling for pride really in 3rd and 4th. Don't want to be that one who's nearest to the danger zone as well. Out of the hairpin goes the 3-way battle for 2nd. Ben Page certainly hasn't been able to ditch Jack Maidment and Joseph Hawkwood. Both breathing down the neck of the number 90. Fastest lap belongs to Tom Adams, 34.52. Once again, anything sub 35 seconds really does seem an impressive lap time. I'm aware that lap times have got quicker over the last few years. That still sounds pretty impressive to me. 1.65 seconds a gap between Tom Adams and Ben Page now. Seems very likely that Adams is going to book his way to the A final. How much is he going to win this race by? Ben Page in 2nd place, looking to try and solidify that position as well as Jack Maidment and Joseph Hawkwood in 3rd and 4th. They're having a good squabble now. Hawkwood dives up the inside, the number 34, and it means that the 3 novices are now the 3 at the back. Though only, of course, 2 of them will be going home early. As I said, racing for pride, not a huge amount at stake in terms of 4th to 2nd all reap the same reward. It's always nice to win a race, of course, as Tom Adams is familiar with. Very quick couple of sectors there by Bertie Wellesley, actually. 35.21 set on that previous lap, and a sector time of 13.99 is very decent in the middle of it. I did lose a little bit of time on that previous lap, so I don't think Bertie Wellesley catching up to Jack Maidment is immediately realistic. Just over halfway through this B final. Joseph Hawkwood really hunting down Ben Page here. He wants that 2nd place. Really wants to make sure that he's not taken for granted just qualifying and sitting back, driving nice and aggressive, entertaining for those watching from the sidelines. Our race leader Tom Adams is now clear of Ben Page by 3.2 seconds, so I think only a disaster really would prevent Tom Adams from going through. Fair difference in pace, I think, between the number 77 of Jack Maidment and Bertie Wellesley as things stand. Has been quicker most of the time, very much each lap of this final. Was quicker than Ben Page on that previous lap. Was the novice of Jack Maidment in fourth, so perhaps we could see a potential overtake for the end of this race. Still a decent amount of time left to do that, but always going to be difficult to get past with the huge amount of risk and little reward really for getting past. Is it worth the risk? Got to make sure you're very assured of yourself and kart's position before committing to a manoeuvre in the mitigating circumstances. In fifth place then, across the line goes Bernie Wellesley. Fastest lap of the race still belongs to Tom Adams, a 34.36. Last lap was a 34.42, so pretty consistent there. Only 600ths off his personal best. Just over a minute left to go before Tom Adams will be claiming victory here. Ben Page and Jack Maidment still haven't quite decided who's going to be going through in third yet. Could be quite the difference maker as well if that first and third positions, if they are on the inside of the track, which you imagine they should be, provided the rest of the field is an even number, of course, those who have already progressed to the A final, then you have the inside of the track, which, as Maciej mentioned on the commentary earlier on, is quite the difference maker. You really want to have that inside line as you head down towards Billy's. If anything happens on the outside, then you can pick up several positions just by being there. Vice versa applies as well, I suppose, but if you're on the inside, then often the contact can result in drifting out to the wider areas of the track anyway. Across the line we go to begin the final lap of the race. Tom Adams with his last stroll around the track. Maidment on Ben Page. Is there going to be a late opportunity? Ben Page making sure he defends. Good racing from the pair of them here. And sticking it on the inside as well, as Maidment has a look for a way through. No way through that time though, and I think that gap is too big now to really make any difference to the position towards the end, but it was an impressive victory for Tom Adams. Joseph Hawkwood in second, third goes to Ben Page, fourth to Jack Maidment, and unfortunately Bertie Wellesley and Thomas Marston will be fifth and sixth, and therefore not competing in the A final. That certainly didn't do their reputation too much harm. A 34.99 by Bertie Wellesley is a very respectable lap time still. They can go home happy with that. Next up is the cadet final. there's one thing that's going to guarantee an entertaining race, it is 26 young drivers who all want to win. The Honda Cadet final so rarely doesn't provide entertainment that you'd say it's pretty much a guarantee that it will do so. 12 minutes of Honda Cadets to enjoy as their final hopefully will be underway at the end of this formation lap. Not quite happy the grid starter there with how they were all lined up. A bit too eager perhaps to get going. Looks like it's going to be Dalton Hayward alongside Hugh Moulton in a tantalising front row. 26 drivers to take to the track for one last time this month. Still a couple more rounds left in this championship, of course. We are getting towards the business end of the season. The Honda Cadet drivers will know that, and we get underway with the next 12-minute final, only the second of the day. As the yellow flags are out, looks like there's been an accident there at Billy's. Not sure if there has. Just see the yellow flag being presented, but very close there between a few drivers. I think one of them is off. It is indeed. Kart in the barrier there on the side of the Sturmey straight, just out of view from my commentary position, but heard the gasps from the crowd. Could have been a potentially nasty one there. Thankfully, the young driver looks okay. Across the line we go. It's Hugh Moulton who leads the way from Dalton Hayward. Harrison Whitcomb in third. Cameron Nelson fourth. Fifth, Charles Green with Freddie Worlock sixth. Seventh, Jonathan Piggott with eighth, Freddie Baker. Ninth, Noah Pikes. And 10th, Ethan Griffiths. A lot of drivers climbing a lot of positions in that opening lap. Looks like we have only got one retirement thus far. So you have to feel for Thomas Minspearing for being the victim of that accident. So Hugh Moulton across the line with Dalton Hayward close in tow. Whitcomb, Nelson and Green certainly not far off the pace either. The quintet of karts, who are all still very close together as they head towards the hairpin once more. This is the third lap of the race. Don't know how many we can expect to see really, but it's going to be far more than 10. It's difficult often to stay concentrated for that long, as well as the physical side of it. The mental will bear fruit as well. Into Billy's once again then, with Hugh Moulton still defending. Most of the drivers seem fairly calm at the moment. There's not been anything too aggressive. They all know what's at stake, but they know the time that's left, and making too clumsy an overtake here really would jeopardise any of the drivers involved, driver attacking or defending. 2.5 minutes gone. And we haven't seen too much change at the top of proceedings here. No changes at all actually in the top 10 from that previous lap, which is fairly rare. Only this few laps in, only on lap 5. They seem fairly content to just sit behind each other at the moment. The top 5, as there's a yellow flag incident, a couple of karts caught up there. Just looked like they locked onto one another and then have to try and get going once again. See as the next lap rolls on who was involved in that. They will have cost them many positions. And now having a look at the inside, here's Hayward up the inside of Moulton. That was a well calculated pass and manages to get it done before Billy's as well. It's going to cost Moulton another position as Whitcomb follows that number 68 karts through, and now it is the 68 and the 66 who lead the way. Hugh Moulton is dropped to third, and Dalton Hayward is your new race leader. As things stand, Harrison Whitcomb just was able to follow that through as well and get later on the brakes in the lead up to the S's, able to carry that momentum through and get past Hugh Moulton, who now sits smack bang in the middle of this leading pack. Green and Nelson still very much there, present in this race, but at the moment it doesn't look like there's any immediate opportunity for them to get into the top three. Maybe in a lap or two if they can close that gap, but Hugh Moulton certainly looks far more competitive to Harrison Whitcomb than Green does to catching up to Moulton, for example. Out of the top end, that top five goes. In 6th and 7th, by the way, also having a little bit of battle. Trying to see who is going to finish in 6th, or maybe get into 6th and try to catch up to the leading 5, but there is a 2-second gap already back to Jonathan Pickett in the number 17 from Cameron Nelson in 5th. And then Jack West is followed over a second away by Ethan Griffiths, Brendan James, Sam Green Gomez and Lucas Howell with Amliakis as well, and not far then off of that battle for 10th place. So still all to play for in the midfield as well. But still not a huge amount of chopping and changing. This is often what we see, of course, from the Honda cadets. They are a lot often not quite as aggressive as we see in the older classes, like to bide their time and not go for anything too risky, and then towards the end of the race we start to really see the drama unfold. I don't know whether we are about 5 minutes away from witnessing a true spectacle of racing between a lot of very talented youngsters. Moulton hasn't let him dropping to third demotivating though, all over the back of Harrison Whitcomb as he's desperate to try and reclaim the lead of the race. Getting past Whitcomb would be stage 1 of doing so. Green and Nelson in 4th and 5th just look like they're ever so slightly starved of the pace that the top 3 seem to have, and that they lose that pair. Still not out of it though, that is for sure, especially if they do start having a bit of a tussle and costing each other more time, then Green and Nelson will be there in a heartbeat. Hayward defending this lead, not having to drive defensively, not taking the inside line. Harrison Whitcomb isn't looking like he's intent on trying to get past at any given opportunity. Just sticking behind Dalton Hayward for now. Once again at the hairpin, decides not to opt for a manoeuvre up the inside. Less than 5 minutes left to go. This is a spark at the moment. You imagine it is a spark that will be lighting an exciting fire before the end of this race. No driver is content with second, always want to win. That will certainly be true for Whitcomb at the moment, but Hugh Moulton as well. I'm sure having led the race for a good few laps that he'll be wanting to get back into that position, but that is an overtake as Hugh Moulton just watches Whitcomb overtake Hayward in a change for the race lead. It was a fairly late manoeuvre at the hairpin really, just saw Hayward drift a tiny little bit too wide and Whitcomb was able to pounce, but now Moulton gets through as well as Hayward reclaims the lead and Whitcomb is pushed down to third. Well, the last half of that lap did see a few changes in position then. Hayward back into the lead, Whitcomb drops to third as Moulton now gets into the lead of the race at the S's. Hugh Moulton, your new race leader, but having a real go on the inside. This is is the race that we had been hoping for, and it's really began to ignite now. Nearly 3 abreast heading into the horseshoe then. It just about is the number 68 of Haywood who holds on to the lead for now, but Whitcomb back ahead of Hugh Moulton, who are exactly the same as we were position-wise a couple of laps ago. But now we have Green and Nelson right on that battle as well. Moulton all over the back of Whitcomb now. Are they going to work together to try and catch back up to Haywood? But both of them will think that the more capable driver in doing so. We still have over 3 minutes left, and well, what a ride we could be in for. But Hugh Moulton drops to 4th. He's overtaken by Charles Green. That's the lowest position that Moulton's been in this race so far, actually. Charles Green up into 3rd. Never gave up. Always made sure he was putting in those lap times to the best of his ability, keeping just about on the back of that group, and it's rewarded him here by a 3rd position as things stand. Out of the top end they come once again then. These 5 carts across the line they go. It's Dalton Haywood who continues to lead the way ahead of Harrison Whitcomb. There's less than a second separating all 5 of these carts as they head into the S's. The quick right-left before Sturmey straight awaits into the hairpin. I don't imagine there's going to be any passing this time, and there isn't. No one tries to make a pass there. The horseshoe looks a bit more likely. Doesn't drive too defensively, but Whitcomb opts not to make an attacking move. Between the top 2, Haywood and Whitcomb. Haywood has certainly led for a larger number of laps, but it doesn't matter how long you're leading for, only that you're leading when you come across the checkered flag. Whitcomb will know this fact. Is this going to be a snatch and grab affair from the number 66, who's been almost consistently second for so much of the race? Right on the back of Dalton Haywood now with the remaining minute and 30 seconds. Hugh Moulton hasn't been able to find a way past Charles Green either since falling behind in 4th place. Once again, round the horseshoe we go. Still not 100% sure about attacking at this stage. Harrison Whitcomb just waiting for the perfect opportunity in these looming last few laps across the line. Once again, this now is lap 17 of the race. Well on towards 20 laps before the end of this race is Hugh Moulton trying to reclaim that position, but I think Green with the inside line would always be the favourite to stick with 3rd, and he does so. Moulton will be frustrated because he knows staying behind Green at the moment is really jeopardising his chances to attack Harrison Whitcomb in 2nd place to get himself onto the podium, which is what he'll really fancy, but particularly a top 2 place. Out of the top end once more. Not going to have too many more of those in this race. Across the line we go with the Honda Cadets. Probably for the 3rd from last time, you imagine. Actually, next lap will be the final one. And once again, the top 5 into the hairpin they go. No changes once again. Are we going to see any last ditch opportunities, or is it just going to end up like this, each of the drivers cancelling each other out effectively? The pace is so similar between each of them. Hugh Moulton actually has the quickest lap, by the way, 40.59. It's a fair amount quicker than any of the efforts from the other drivers, so he's got that under his belt, but probably won't care about that too much come the end of the race. Is the last lap of the race now Whitcomb or Haywood for the race win, and is it going to be Green, Moulton or Nelson for 3rd place? Heading down towards the hairpin. Is it going to be a late manoeuvre? No, Hugh Moulton doesn't quite go for that one. But now Whitcomb is on the outside, heading into the horseshoe. Is he going to try and cut back up the inside? He tries. Hugh Moulton's up into 3rd. Charles Green pushes it onto the grass. Not quite there. Manages to stick onto that position for now as Haywood is in the lead as they come out of the top end. Who's it going to be out of these 2? Haywood or Whitcomb is going to be close as well as Hugh Moulton with a bit of contact with the back of that car, but across the line we go. And it is Dalton Haywood who wins an enthralling finale to the Honda Cadets, with Harrison Whitcomb having to settle for 2nd, Charles Green in 3rd, Hugh Moulton 4th, 5th with Cameron Nelson in the end. Then Freddie Worlock was 5.75 seconds adrift of that 5-way battle. Jonathan Piggott in 7th, 8th goes to Jack West, 9th Sam Green Gomez, and Lucas Howell rounding out your top 10. Emily Ackett's in 11th, 12th Brandon James, with Ethan Griffiths in 13th, 14th Logan Bennett, 15th Freddie Baker, then Zach Harrison, Luke Ford and Harry Cottrell make up a trio of novices in the middle of the pack. Noah Pites in 19th, 20th Oliver Gussman, Travis Rose in 21st, 22nd goes to Max Lovell, Noah McNichols in 23rd, 4th goes to Archie Dyson, and Thomas Min spearing the only retirement actually. A very clean finale there from the Honda Cadets, have to praise them for that. But a breathtaking, exciting affair that sees Dalton Hayward take the checkered flag and the victory of the Honda Cadet final. Now it looks as though it is the 177 and 177 Masters final. They make their way fairly slowly around the top part of the circuit. Race number 28 this will be. So still 5 races left to entertain you with today. Ian Bramfield alongside Cole Edwards was the front row we knew we were going to have, and Cole Edwards doesn't get the best start actually. Definitely that inside line of the circuit had the better getaway, but Cole Edwards doesn't care about that and just cuts ahead of Ian Bramfield into the race lead. A brilliant Billy's Blind, just carried so much momentum through there, the E-plate, and was able to get himself into the lead of the race. As a little bit further down in the midfield, there's a lot of swapping positions and getting themselves into wherever their pace dictates them to be in these early stages. Across the line goes Edwards, third come the timing line at the start, but after a brilliant first corner, able to leapfrog both Branfield and Milner, who he was initially behind. Branfield maybe a little bit too narrow, lost the speed by not drifting out wide, and Cole Edwards was just able to carry that momentum all the way around. A little bit of a nudge there between the number 70, or the number 53 actually I think it was, of Chris Skivier, and maybe 67 of Ayrton Anderson in the middle of the pack there. Sam Winter sporting the number 10 plate is in 7th. Of course had a pretty decent race earlier on today, I think in about heat 2. Looking to try and replicate some of that pace, but hasn't quite paid off just yet. Cole Edwards and Ian Brownfield is a fairly predictable top 2. It's how they go about the rest of the race, which really remains to be seen. Still remains a very interesting prospect, these two. Ian Bramfield looked fairly comfortable in Heat 3 when he drove to a superb victory, but this time Carl Edwards has got the better in the early stages, and maybe it was that really helped Bramfield out in that previous race for these drivers. They would have been rejuvenated since. A few tweets on the kart and some lunch will have helped each of the drivers regain their spirits, and Cole Edwards, it looks like at the moment, is slightly more rejuvenated of the two, but Bramfield closing in and had a much better lap on that last lap actually. Cut out nearly half of the lead that Edwards had developed. From 4th down to 10th, there is very little time between each of those drivers. Perhaps from 4th and Ben Johnson, he's got a 0.45 second gap back to Chris Skivier, so you can definitely imagine that's a little bit of a gap to play with. It's certainly not immediate overtaking territory, but certainly from Skivier backwards, the biggest gap is 0.3 of a second. Still all to play for in the middle towards the rear of the grid. It's Milner in 3rd, looking a lonely figure at the moment. Doesn't have too much company either side, with Ben Johnson then leading the battle in 4th. 5th is Chris Skivier, with Ayrton Anderson in 6th. 7th Sam Winter. 8th Ian Brown. Alfie Williams 9th, and Reese Llewellyn 10th. Cole Edwards and Ian Bramfield as your top two. They've been the top two over the course of the day. Keep striking blow after blow, but this final race is where the biggest blow will be dealt. Don't know how this class looks in terms of the championship. Of course, we can start really turning our attention towards the championship now and into the final stages. Certainly for next month, I'm going to make sure I have some championship tables printed out. Keep an eye on proceedings there. It's going to be a thoroughly unique year with championship standings, given the coronavirus, but nonetheless, no less valuable a championship win for any of the drivers in any of the classes is a huge accolade. Definitely helps progress their career. And now having a look up the inside, Ian Bramfield does commit to this manoeuvre this time. I think Edwards, though, with the inside line should be okay there. And indeed, I think he has retained that position. Yeah, he has. So Bramfield tries to get enough speed to carry him through on this ever so slight left-hand bend that exists on the pit straight. And thought maybe he got the move done, but in the braking zone, Edwards just able to get on the brakes at the same time as him, and as a result, with the inside line, it was never going to quite work out for Ian Bramfield. Maybe he will be thinking about overtaking in a different place next time, maybe at Billy's rather than getting himself in a compromising position to do so. Now onto the Sturmey straight and heading back down towards the hairpin. Does Bramfield stand a chance at overtaking Cole Edwards? And well, Edwards does take a very wide line into the horseshoe, just trying to get as much pace as he possibly could, and it worked on this occasion because Bramfield not close enough to make a late dive up the inside. Could have ended in tears for all involved if he had, to be fair. Knows his stuff, does Ian Bramfield. Sturmey straight once again. No defensive tactics from Edwards as of yet. Bramfield just staying behind and unable to respond over the last couple of laps. 3 laps ago when he had a go, it was nearly, but not quite. Has another little peek, does Bramfield, but there isn't any way through this time. Into the S's once more and onto the Sturmey straight. Let's keep an eye on what's happening further behind. Dan Milner still looks fairly comfortable in third, but from fourth backwards there's still absolutely no gap at all. It's Ben Johnson who now occupies that position, with Chris Skivier in fifth. Picked up a contact warning in sixth place has Sam Winter, and in seventh Ian Brown, Ayrton Anderson in eighth, ninth Rhys Llewellyn and Alfie Williams in 10th place. Across the line we go with the race leaders. Has a little look there, does Skivier, on Ben Johnson in what would be a swap for fourth place. Really, you can still see Alfie Williams still feasibly taking fourth place, because they really are just that close together. Who knows whether that will be the case, but Skivier now having a real go at Ben Johnson as the group of carts hurtle down towards Billy's Blind, and now onto the Sturmey Straight, very close together. And it's just about the same order for now. No changes in order either with the top two, as Edwards continues to lead them round. Across the line go the top two, with Edwards and Branfield still battling it out. In third place Dan Milner, and the fourth downwards. There is very little still to separate those drivers. It's been the same story for so long now in this race. Very little to separate the top two, and then 4th to 10th. 2 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock before the last lap of this 12-minute final. First lap of the race does belong with Ian Branfield, a 35 dead in comparison to Cole Edwards, a 35.01, so they really are that close together, even on pace. Only 0.01 of a second separate each of their personal bests. Ben Johnson down to Alfie Williams, still separated by about a second for the entire pack. Truly remarkable to see. Cole Edwards and Ian Branfield still at it, but there's nothing to separate them heading into the last few laps. There won't be long left now, that much is for certain. It is going to be the end of the race for the number 22. As Rhys Llewellyn, Ian Brown has dropped down to 9th, and Rhys Llewellyn is out of proceedings, so definitely a bit of contact between the pair there. Disappointing end to the day for Rhys Llewellyn, who was right in the mix there as well, potentially on course for very promising finish, but alas, not to be. Cole Edwards and Ian Brownfield in the leading couple of positions, and on to Stony Straight once again. There's so little to separate them. Cole Edwards does take a slightly more defensive line this time. Next lap will be the final lap, so only has to fight for about a lap and a half more before we will know who comes out on top. Edwards has led from the first corner, the end of the first corner, until now. Would be gutted to lose that lead on the final lap, but Ian Brownfield is going to try and ensure he does just that. Heading into Billy's then, Cole Edwards takes the defensive line, does go out slightly wide. That was a risk he was willing to take, and one that paid off because Brownfield didn't have enough momentum to carry him through. And now into the hairpin for the final time. Edwards driving sensibly here. I don't think Brownfield is going to be able to carve out any last opportunities. He's going to have to watch the E-plates take a victory, I think, as they head into Buttons. Last opportunities if he can get a really good run out of the top end here. Ian Brownfield out of the top end and down towards the checkered flag. And it is victory for Cole Edwards. Brownfield puffed and he puffed, but he couldn't quite blow Cole Edwards off of that top spot. And it is victory for the E-plates. Dan Milner in third. Fourth will go to Ben Johnson after a very hotly contested affair. It is Ayrton Anderson in fifth with Sam Winter sixth. Seventh, Chris Scavier. Alfie Williams eighth. Ninth, Ian Brown. And Reece Llewellyn, the only retirement, he will take the points for 10. It's the Minimax final up next then, race number 29. Ben Crossley alongside Bobby Rosier with Aaron Full and Leo Purchase look like they're going to be the front runners on the grid for this one. Bound to be a very watchable race, this Minimax final. Out they come of the top end then, looking to get their race underway. 12 minutes of Minimax then, and it is very much underway. Full speed going across the line there as they head into Billy's. Just about get around cleanly, I think, into the S's as well. There's definitely a bit of contact, a few bumps and barges, but I think everyone just about gets away with it. out of the hairpin they come now. The majority of the pack, again, so tight, but they just can't make it through. Front runners, the top three, have peeled away, but it looks like there's a couple of carts latched together here. The number 20 and 61 right on the back of the number 20 there. I think the nose cone is really completely latched onto the rear bumper to come together. But the top three have made a run for it, really. Bobby Rosier, Aaron Full, and the GP plated Harry Linden, who's been impressive throughout the day, are the current top three. Yellow flags were waving in that sector, but actually now it should be okay to overtake because the yellow flag wasn't out as the drivers crossed that part of the circuit. As Finn Smith in sixth, of course. You'll remember in Heat 3, Finn Smith and Harry Linden coming together right at the end of the race, so both of whom will be wanting a better conclusion to this one. Onto the Sturmey Straight we go then, with the number 49 leading the way, Bobby Rosier. I'm not sure I recall too many times actually mentioning his name over the course of the day. Evidently just picked up enough consistent points to land himself right to the top of the tree in terms of qualification points for the final, but it is Harry Linden who leads the way now. Rosier certainly hasn't fallen off the pace, but Harry Linden, our new race leader. And as we cross the line, we see the confirmed order: Harry Linden, Bobby Rosier, and Aaron Full is your current top three. Finn Smith and Leo Purchase swap around for fourth and fifth. So Finn Smith now up into fourth position. And if that extraordinary battle we were seeing between Smith and Harry Linden in that previous race is only to go off, it could lead to a very exciting finale to this race. Out of the top end come the top two, and then third, fourth and fifth as well. Aaron Full, Finn Smith and Leo Purchase all very close together. Aaron Full has dropped off somewhat, or is it Harry Linden? No, it is Linden who still leads the way, but Full still right on the back. Those of the top two, sorry, I got muddled up there, the back markers. The two back markers who the leading trio are approaching. Look very much as though they're in the lead of the race, but they are the number 61 and 25, I think it is. Well, no, number 20, Billy Edgecombe, are nearly a lap behind. They were the two that had to stop at the horseshoe because their carts were very much connected to each other. Harry Linden leading the way then. Bobby Rosier and Aaron Full still in second and third, but are slipping slightly away from race leader Harry Linden's superior pace. Quickest lap of the race does belong to Ben Crossley, 35.93. The number 56 means he's the quickest driver out on the track, but will he be able to replicate that in terms of position? He's only just behind Finn Smith, who's the, I think, second quickest driver out there. Leo Purchase, Andrew Douglas, Stephen Duncan, Oliver Kerr and Jacob Gilman currently round out your top 10. Blue flags are waving now for Edgecombe and Daniel Tribe. They have some carts approaching them pretty quickly. Harry Linden, the first of which, is going to clear the number 61 and get himself a lap ahead. Good driving though by each of the two back markers, not interfered with the action as of yet. Onto the pit straight goes Harry Linden. Oh look, that's a decent bit of racing with those drivers in behind. Number 49 there of Bobby Rosier, Aaron Full right on his tail still. Nothing that can separate those drivers at the moment, as out of the top end we come then. Harry Linden leading the way. He's going to get past the back marker without too many issues here. Blue flag waving, and he does suitably make sure he moves out of the way. In fact, I think the back marker situation has really helped Harry Linden. I don't think that maybe the drivers in behind have had quite an easy way through. Both Billy Edgecombe and Daniel Tribe have been very obedient to Harry Linden's blue flags. definitely to the drivers in behind as well. There's just some parts of the circuit that is just more difficult to get past and to lap those back markers. That's just how it is. Numbers 28 and 19 though, really close together. Aaron Full and Finn Smith. Smith has really closed in on a second and third. Bobby Rosier and Aaron Full maybe sweating a bit now as they see the number 19 behind them. Karts don't have rear view mirrors, but if they did, then I think they'd be a little nervous of the fact that Finn Smith has called them up in such a dramatic manner. Not a huge amount of time really, where he was about half a second or so, maybe even further behind, but Billy Edgecombe waves the battle on by. We start to get a real feel for the actual track order. Onto the Sturmy straight we go. Still Rosier, Full and Smith remains the order from second to fourth. The race leader Harry Linden is having no troubles at the moment. Just behind them, Ben Crossley, who is 0.55 of a second behind Finn Smith, so certainly not a huge amount. Finn Smith actually, now as he climbed up a position he had, so Aaron Full now with Ben Crossley very much for company. Finn Smith picking his way through the order. Next opponent, Bobby Rosier. There'll be an opportunity at the end of the Sturmy straight. Not quite. He's just got to bide his time here. Finn Smith, though, it looks as if he's the quickest driver on the circuit. But once again, Ben Crossley with that quickest lap time, 35.73, means that he is still the quickest driver out there. With him making his way through the field and Smith also doing the same. He's got past Rosier now, by the way. Means that they could really see a completely different front three by just a couple of laps time, really. We've got still just under 5 minutes left to race, so a huge amount of time for Crossley and Smith to make their impressions. Crossley's got past Full. Now can he find a way past Bobby Rosier in third? He's not far behind, as you can see. Even separating Smith and Crossley is only about half a second. I think it's just over half a second, 0.53 by the looks of things. Across the line goes Harry Linden, who is now only 0.7 of a second up the road. Took 3/10 out of the lead of the race leader, did Finn Smith on that last lap, and they came to such an extraordinary conclusion in Heat 3. This final, with even higher stakes, could prove to be thoroughly decisive. Harry Linden leading the way, Finn Smith in second place. It is still Rosier, I think, in third at the moment, but Crossley, no, he has got past now, sorry, Crossley, so up into third. Rosier down to fourth, and fifth place Aaron Full still isn't far away, but he's top five so quick. In sixth place Stephen Duncan, he's gained a good few positions over the course of this race, but still now is about 2 seconds adrift of Aaron Full in the number 28, who's in fifth place, of course, and well, back of Bobby Rosier now, actually. Those two have been constantly close over the course of the race, and now having both been overtaken by Crossley and Smith, looks like they're sort of back to square one, the two of them battling it out. But Finn Smith right in the back of the race leader now. Linden versus Smith. It's round two, but it now looks like Smith is going to go up the inside. They don't make contact this time, and Smith is into the lead of the race for the very first time in this final. Some defensive line as well heading into the hairpin. It looks like Linden is really trying to get his way back past, and we've still got 2 minutes and 40 seconds left of this one. But Finn Smith, well, surely he should technically be disappearing up the road right now, and it looks like that's starting to happen. That gap beginning to form, but Smith catching him up so impressively. Will he be able to pull away from Harry Linden, or is Ben Crossley, who has been consistently putting in very quick laps as well, is he in with a real chance of claiming a victory here as well? There's still a good amount of time, but Finn Smith now does have the quickest lap of the race. He has beaten the personal best of Ben Crossley, which tends to indicate now quickest driver at the front should equal victory. Crossley not far behind Harry Linden. Linden certainly won't be particularly used to being overtaken by other drivers, but Finn Smith has managed to get the better of him here. Perhaps Ben Crossley is the next on the list to do so. About half a second separating the top three as things stand, and they head onto the Stirling Straight once more. Over 10 minutes gone, so into our final couple minutes of racing. Final lap to come after that as well, so still a few laps left, perhaps 4 or so. Certainly enough time for Crossley to get past Linden. Or is Linden going to deploy some defensive tactics? Is looking all good for Finn Smith at the moment. Got that kart set up absolutely right. Now right on the back of Harry Linden now is Ben Crossley. He's been consistently either the quickest or second quickest driver over the course of this race. As that not so personal battle has been raging on of fastest laps. Doesn't seem that Harry Linden's got any reply to Finn Smith, but will he be able to keep Ben Crossley behind him for the remaining time? Time is running out for Crossley though, if he is to find a way past. We are into our final 30 seconds now. Will he get away past Harry Linden? Who is it going to be for second place to surely follow Finn Smith across the line? I can't see anything changing there. Unless we're going to see a late mistake from any of the drivers, or perhaps a collision. Aaron Full has overtaken Bobby Rosier as well, so that's a change for fourth. Aaron Full back into fourth place, having lost it to, I think it was Ben Crossley who put him out of the top four for a little while, but across the line we go to begin the last lap of the race. Will Crossley get it done in time? Harry Linden got to throw all the defensive tactics out now. Harry Linden will surely try to take this one home, but actually I'm not sure Crossley is quite close enough to make the manoeuvre anyway. Ben Crossley really trying to find a way through, but goes defensive at the horseshoe. Will lose a little bit of time, but make sure that Crossley stays behind. Into buttons they go, and the final bend coming up now, top bend. It will be Finn Smith to take the victory, and a brilliant victory as well. And it will be Harry Linden to hold on to second place. And Ben Crossley in third, fourth, Aaron Full with Bobby Rosier in fifth, sixth, Stephen Duncan with Leo Purchase, seventh, eighth, Andrew Douglas, ninth, Jacob Gilman, 10th, Harrison Crowther, Kieran Roberts, 11th, 12th, Brian Collins, William Rea, 13th, 14th, Oliver Kerr, Benjamin Bartlett, Mikey Porter, Braden Hill, Holly Woolley, Oliver Smith and Arthur Thacker is the order down to the top 20. Holly Mile and Donovan Dyer are 21st and 22nd, with Billy Edgecombe 23rd, and Daniel retired after 11 laps of the 22 we eventually saw there. Finn Smith with a brilliant victory, fastest lap, totally deserved. Harry Linden and Ben Crossley round out your podium in a thoroughly entertaining Minimax final. Well, before the race has even started, we had a fairly heavy incident here as the numbers 18 and 83 come together, and they both were in the tyre wall. Looks like the number 18 doesn't look too optimistic about getting going again. Leo Locastro doesn't look too likely to be starting this race, unfortunately. The Junior Max final following the Mini Max that we saw last time. Yellow flag still out. I don't know whether we will be going next time or not. It looks like they've got LaCastro going again. Number 54, I think, is also going to retire. There's a spinner as well as number 41. Finds stuff facing the wrong way. It's the messiest formation laps I've seen in a while. Hopefully everyone can calm down a bit and we can get this race started. The Junior Rotax final. It is up next. Hopefully to begin pretty shortly. This is the A final, of course, so right at the back of the field we'll see Beards, Sims, Chapman and Poulain, who all qualified from the B final. Right to the front is Matthew Lambert. I know he's at the back, never mind. It's Joe Linden alongside Sam Gornall at the front. Gornall versus Linden, who gets the better run going down into the first corner. Well, a little bit of nudging between a few of the drivers, but they all make their way onto the Sturmey straights. Okay, apart from that one driver who doesn't look like he's going to get going after all. It's a real shame for the young driver there, but looks like it's the number 96 of Sam Gornall, who from the front row will take that lead into the beginning of the second lap. And that second lap does begin now. Jordan Morris in second place, third Callum Boyden with Joe Linden in fourth, who hasn't had the best start as they make their way into the S's once more. So tight between each of these Junior Max cars. Jack Meakin in fifth, sixth Harry Reynolds, seventh place Tristan Rennie with Daniel Sawyer, Lincoln Bailey, Arneson, Cameron Crockett as your current top 10. Race leader Sam Gornall having no problems at all though as he looks to try and open up his lead even more. Across the line we go. In second place is Callum Boyton now. He's got a better Jordan Morris as well. It's been a bit of a horror show for Joe Linden at the start of this race. The number 79 really hasn't had the start they would have envisaged, been struggling now as he gets swamped by more and more very quick drivers. It's going to be more and more difficult to pick your way back up to the top where he began. So Joe Linden in fifth place now, very much in the middle of a hustling pack, and there's so few gaps around the field really. It hasn't dispersed at all, makes it a very exciting final race for these Junior Max drivers. Guys on the inside there, brilliant late move actually by the, I think it's the number 78 of Tristan Rennie, probably on Joe Linden actually, to get himself into fifth place, but really late on the brakes and just thrashed the cars into the S's, made sure that he was able to get in that position. Tucked in front just to the right side, brilliant manoeuvre out of the top end, and across the long way we go with Sam Gornall and Callum Boyden at the front two, 0.37 of a second separating them, but 0.15 of a second quicker was Callum Boyden, so Sam Gornall's comfortable lead could well be ending soon. Boyden knows so well how to consistently win at Clay, arguably is more familiar with the circuit than Sam Gornall. That extra bit of experience and know-how will help him out. We'll just have to wait and see. Brilliant duel going on between the top two as things stand, with third and fourth Reynolds and Morris. And a little bit further back in fifth place is Tristan Rennie with Joe Linden in sixth in behind. And then there's a few gaps as the top 10 begins to spread out a little. Top four closing in on one another though. I don't know whether it looks like Boyden is perhaps a little quicker than Sam Gornall, but can't quite find a way through, and therefore Harry Reynolds and Jordan Morris, who are on a similar pace to Boyden, are able to therefore catch up. But Gornall at the moment still in the lead in the race, still looking very racy. It's not like he's going to get all the cars behind him all stacked up because he's not going quick enough. Boyden is ever so slightly quicker, and it looks like Reynolds is quicker than both of them, with Tristan Rennie setting the fastest lap of the race at 34.76. We could well see a five-way tussle for the lead before long. So often you see finals that have this much excitement, despite putting it in pace order over the course of the day. You think, well, logically, first you get away from second, second you get away from third, and so on. But that extra bit of adrenaline and pressure that carries the drivers through really does make for an exciting thing. And of course, a few tweaks to the kart and the tyres may well make all the difference. Voisin always looks racy around this circuit. No, red flags are out. Not entirely sure what for. I can't see why, but there is a red flag incident there. So I'll stop talking, and hopefully we can be up and running soon. ready to restart then. We pick up where we left off with 7.5 minutes left on the clock of this Junior Max final. It's a massive grid, as we can see, and we pick up in the same order, but each of the gaps, of course, very much reduced between each of the drivers. Those who had built up a sizable gap between themselves and the car behind will be disappointed, but it's the only fair way to get the restart back underway. Very serious incident to warrant that red flag, but back underway, and it's all good. Across the line we go then. Sam Gordon and Callum Boyden. Callum Boyden very much picking up from where he left off, which was attacking Sam Gornall's kart and trying to get himself into the lead of the race. Having a look down Sturmey Straight, no way through there. Sam Gornall has been so quick today, but Callum Boyden does seem at the moment like a different gravy. Harry Reynolds, Jordan Morris and Tristan Rennie are not far behind. Rennie left in superb form just before the red flag. He was tearing up the rest of the field with his pace, but let's just see how he can get on now. They've restarted once again back down towards Billy's line, and the top three so close together. We've had Muddy Boyden in the lead of the race now as they go into the Sturmey Straight. It is indeed Callum Boyden, your new race leader. Horseshoe, there you go. Callum Boyden having got the better of Sam Gornall, was struggling a little bit against Boyden before the restart, and now we've got going once again. Has a little tweak on his card as Boyden, but at the moment it seems pretty plain sailing. Harry Reynolds is just behind Sam Gornall. Maybe he'll fancy a piece of the action as well, but Jordan Morris and Tristan Rennie can absolutely not be discounted. Neither, in fact, can 6th or 7th place Joe Linden and Jack Meakin, all of whom are such quick drivers. Full of compliments for the drivers in the Junior Max class. Up and coming youngsters ready to hit that track with the aggression and pace that they have shown on many occasions. And having a look at the inside here is Tristan Rennie on Jordan Morris. I think he's done it, up into 4th place then. Onto the Sturmey Straight we go, and it is Rennie now up into 4th place, not too far away from the top 3, and he also occupies still the quickest lap, does Rennie. And well, let's see as the race goes on what's going to happen with these front runners here, because it doesn't look like there's anyone who's going to run away with it at the moment. If it is, it's the man who's currently in the lead, Callum Boyden, who's likely to do so, and heading into Billy. There's a bit of contact there as Rennie collects 3rd place Harry Reynolds. I think they both suffered as a result of that. Rennie certainly dropped down at least one position. He's in 5th now. But who is that he's moved down to 6th or 7th? Because they got off a lot worse, actually, than Rennie did. Number 17 of Jordan Morris has certainly benefited from it. He's up into 3rd now. It's given a bit of clean air to Sam Gornall as well, as he tries to pick up the pieces from losing that position to Callum Boyden a few laps ago. John Morris, Joe Linden, Jack Meakin, Harry Reynolds, Noah Hadley is the order of the top 7 now. It's Tristan Rennie, actually, who looks like he may be out of the equation. And that bit of contact at Billy's has cost Rennie dearly. After it looked so much like he would be one of the favourites going into this race to be, well, very exciting driver and one that would be heading up towards the front few places, but unfortunately it looks like Rennie is out of the race. He's in the pit lane and becomes the first retirement, or the second or third retirement of the race overall, but the first retirement since the restart of this Junior Max final. 3 minutes and 20 seconds remain, and Callum Boyden with Sam Gornall in 2nd still remains the top 2. It's more of a top 5 battle now. Harry Reynolds has dropped into 7th, and Noah Hadley in 6th, actually. He's a fair way off the pace though of 5th place Jack Meakin. There's 0.6 of a second separating, 1.46 separating Meakin from Hadley, and it's 0.6 from Linden back to Meakin in the battle for 5th. So it's fairly close still between the top 5, but after that, back to 6th place. You can't really see any driver from 6th backwards likely to challenge any of the front runners now unless they can really find a bit of pace from somewhere. Noah Hadley is on a bit of a storm at the moment, to be fair. He has a lot of pace, setting the quickest lap so far. Is there anyone who can dethrone the King of Clay, Callum Boysen, as things stand? Down the main straight here. He's got Sam Dornall behind. It looks like he's closed the gap slightly. He has half a tenth quicker on that previous lap, so actually so much quicker than Dornall. Well, not so much quicker, but consistently a little bit quicker before the red flag. He has now started to lose a little bit of pace to Sam Dornall in behind. It looks like that gap this lap may have opened up a little bit more, but perhaps to wait and see. Perhaps that last lap was a little bit of an anomaly. Ever so slight mistake, perhaps, from the number 35's point of view. Well, they set almost identical lap times, 34.83 and a 34.86. And Joe Linden in third, Jordan Morris in fourth, fifth is Jack Meakin with sixth, Noah Hadley. Top three suddenly has turned very much into a top three. Fourth and fifth have been sucked back into the battle with Noah Hadley and Harry Reynolds, who in turn is not quite at the pace of Noah Hadley. It really looks as though it's going to be Callum Boysen at the moment, though. It's hard to look past that as we approach the final 60 seconds of the race. Jack Meakin ahead of Jordan Morris now. That's an overtake for fourth place. Noah Hadley will be watching on as well. He's got a lot of pace, but Joe Linden actually fastest lap of the race so far. Been about 4 or 5 different fastest lap holders over the course of this one. It goes to show how competitive the class really can be, but Dornall with some serious problems in the form of Joe Linden now, who wants that second place off of him. I think Callum Boysen's too far up the road, especially with the time that remains. Only about 37 seconds as they cross the line, so they should get round one more time as well before that timer hits zero. But Joe Linden on the back of Sam Dornall. To the Stirling straight, there you go. Joe Linden determined to get himself a second place finish, but Sam Dornall really wants to defend, and he is going defensively now at the horseshoe, taking the inside line. Really doesn't want to concede a late place here and end up in third. In fourth is Jack Meakin, who's looking fairly sound to take that position home. But this is the last lap of the race. Rather unexpectedly so, I think. But onto the semi-straight they go for the final time. Then Dornall versus Linden. Not going to go for it. Actually, the yellow flag waving as there's a cut off at the hairpin. But heading into the horseshoe, and it's a defensive line from Sam Dornall. Now Meakin's right there. I don't think Joe Linden's going to have any more opportunities as they come out of the top end for the final time. Callum Boysen takes the victory. A very well earned one, but across the line it is just about going to be Sam Dornall who holds on to it ahead of Joe Linden and Jack Meakin. In the end, there was only just over 0.3 of a second separating those three karts. Jordan Morris in fifth, sixth goes to Noah Hadley, seventh to Harry Reynolds with Cameron Crockett in eighth, ninth Lincoln Bailey Arneson, and Daniel Sawyer in 10th place. 11th is the novice of Daniel Sevilla. So what a brilliant drive from the young novice there. Number 13, Lucas Hayden in 12th, 13th Ethan Lomax with Jake Shurey in 14th, 15th Harrison Crook, Jack Goring 16th, another novice with an impressive finishing position. Maximilian Zalaski, Matthew Lambert, Harry Rowett and George Walker are the rest of your top 20. time now for the 7 competitors who make up the class of the Dart Motorsport class today. Archie Sherwood alongside Lewis Nurse is a fairly familiar front two. Joseph Fitch, Charlie French, Chris Williams, Jack Reeve and James Reeve is the rest of your 7 kart ensemble. There was definitely 8 in each of the heats, so it looks like we've lost one of the drivers heading into the final race here. I think it's Nick Williams actually, who unfortunately doesn't look like he's going to compete in the final here this afternoon. As we go over the line, Archie Sherwood versus Lewis Nurse is the battle you'd expect to see, but perhaps we will see a few rolls of the dice or a few unexpected things along the way, but that's a bit of contact there, which has meant the number 5 bouncing across the grass. Jack Reeve will have to rejoin the race, and that is unfortunate there on the exit of the S's, because it just kills your momentum heading down one of the fastest parts of the circuit. A brilliant getaway from Archie Sherwood though. He has had a fantastic start, and himself and Lewis Nurse might well have had a pretty fierce competition, but Nurse, I think, as well, may be fairly surprised as to just how well Archie Sherwood has got away. Each of the finals has been reduced in length now, by the way, to 8 minutes. We are losing daylight a little later in the day than we're used to here at Clay Pigeon Raceway. And now having a look up the inside there, the number 42 struggling to get past Joseph Fitch, the novice, and indeed Fitch reclaims that position. Chris Williams has picked up a contact warning in the meantime as well. So Archie Sherwood, let's see as he goes across the line, what a driver out there. He is indeed, and comfortably so, nearly a second quicker than Lewis Nurse in second place, who isn't the quickest driver out there beside the race leader, by the way. Is actually Joseph Fitch in third, who is quicker than Nurse but not quite as quick as Sherwood, and at the moment Archie Sherwood's lead looks formidable. Out of the top end, the race leaders then, and Archie Sherwood storming his way at the moment. Around the hairpin at this point on the circuit. A short straight that separates hairpin in the horseshoe, often a place where a lot of overtaking manoeuvres are generated, but none such could be made this time. It's looking very good for Archie Sherwood though, who won 2 of the 3 heats. The only other victor was Lewis Nurse in heat 2, and he looked pretty comfortable in that heat as well. He looked very much like he could compete with Archie Sherwood, but seems a completely different couple of karts in this final. Sherwood's running away with it at the moment, as there's a spinner as well towards the back. It looks like it was the 6th place driver. Chris Williams has gone into the pit, but I think Jack Reeve is the driver who's found himself facing the wrong way. Not very often you see a novice driver with a low number, as is the case for Jack Reeve in his number 5, the novice driver. Across the line goes Jack Reeve. A spin on that previous lap won't have helped his cause. Closest karts together on the circuit are Lewis Nurse and Charlie French. French having now got the better of Joseph Fitch, who had an initial loss of pace in this race. Not quite sure what's happened to him, but for whatever reason just dropped off the pace, and as a result sitting in 4th and doesn't look likely to be catching up to 3rd anytime soon. Charlie French now occupies that position. He's got Lewis Nurse ahead by 0.6 of a second, but doesn't look like anything's immediately likely to happen. We'll just have to wait and see, but Lewis Nurse with enough of a gap that he doesn't have to consider Charlie French an immediate concern. He wants to just put in those good lap times, but still a lap time of 36.92, a quick lap by Lewis Nurse, but that personal best still isn't comparable to what Archie Sherwood has been able to produce. 36.76 is his best effort, and on that last lap he was nearly as quick once again, and still about 1.5 tenths quicker than Lewis Nurse's personal best, and it wasn't his personal best. A fairly ominous sign that. Over 3 seconds the gap now as Archie Sherwood on his way to what looks like a very impressive victory. Across the line, each of the karts still running. Jack Reeve as well, he's still in the running in the 6th position. He's nearly 10 seconds adrift of James Reeve. Joseph Fitch actually catching up to Charlie French once again. He just needs to reclaim a bit of that confidence which he definitely had in the early stages of this final. This is the penultimate race of the day. Next up is the senior match final. I'm sure it will be a very well watched event. Approach the final quarter of this race. Archie Sherwood with the quickest lap of the race as well. Personal best of a 36.6. Isn't giving anyone else a shot really. Having Lewis Nurse in second, third Charlie French, and fourth Joseph Fitch. Across the line Jack Reeve, which means all of the drivers out there have now completed 10 laps. This is the 11th lap of the race. 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the clock, but I don't think we're going to see too many changes in position from this point. Across the line, what's the difference between Lewis Nurse and Charlie French now? It's 2 seconds, and then a further 1.87 seconds back to Joseph Fitch, who's once again putting in some fairly commendable lap times, but just not quite enough to really see him close in on French and give him a late scare here. Seemed to have some very decent pace towards the start of this race. Don't know whether his confidence was knocked ever so slightly by going into fourth and lost a bit more time and seemed to be falling further and further away from French. But over the last few laps they've been able to replicate some of that pace, and well, if we still had those 12-minute finals, I wonder whether we would be seeing Fitch closing in once again, but on that last lap it was again considerably slower. Maybe just a little mistake or two would have cost Fitch on that occasion, but we can definitely say that with 10 seconds left to go, this will be the order that we will finish, and Archie Sherwood's lead, a very dominant one, is likely to take the biggest margin of victory in a final this afternoon, and we would very much respect. Onto the Sturmey Straight goes the number 2 with Lewis Nurse in second, third Charlie French, fourth Joseph Fitch, James Reeve fifth, and sixth Jack Reeve, who hasn't been able to close that gap huge amount since that spin in the early stages of the race, which has definitely cost him. But a great win, brilliant drive from Archie Sherwood, made sure he led from the off, blasted the rest of the competition away really. Lewis Nurse in second place, will probably wish he could have at least competed a little more. Charlie French in third, concluding your podium for the Dart Motorsport class as they conclude their first day at Clay Pigeon Raceway. Been thoroughly enjoyable having them here. Hope to see them again maybe next season and beyond. The winner at the end of it is Archie Sherwood, as we turn our attention to the last race of the day, Senior Rotax, and their A final is up next. Here we are then, our last race of the day. This is going to be slightly reduced in time. It's only going to be 8 minutes long, but maybe a little short, but very sweet for the Senior Max A final. Unsurprisingly, it gathers a large turnout of spectators to watch a very quick grid. Archie Brown and Teddy Clinton looks to be the top two. Let's see how they get on. Across the line, there you go. We have 30 competitors in this race. The one novice does start right at the back in the form of Jack Maidman, but we're away. Archie Brown and Teddy Clinton are the top two, as one of the drivers is about to cross the grass there at the S's, unfortunately. He's going to have to try and reclaim his positions further up the field, but the number 72 of Archie Brown with a fantastic start and leading the way as the opening lap really sees the front seven get away pretty capably. Across the line, there you go. And it's been a very good start for Brandon Hayes. He's playing 4 positions. Dominic Cousins as well gaining 4. Lewis Halliday and Louis Barker both climbing 5 places. But Reese Hurd from 18th to 10th in the opening lap. That is a truly phenomenal first lap there. But look at this front seven. So competitive. Now the number 87 there, very much involved with Maciej Hamera. Dominic Cousins actually, the 67, who looked as though he may have been a bit of contact initiating with Maciej Hamera. They're going around the corner, but luckily they both got away with it. Archie Brown and Ryan Taylor-Truman on the Sturmey straight now, battling it out, but Teddy Clinton is your new race leader. Was a very good win for Teddy Clinton in Heat 3. I can't remember the winner of Heat 4 now, but I know Clinton won at least one of the races in the heats here, and he'll be looking to close the day out with a win in the final, which is always the most important one. Ryan Taylor-Truman up to second then, with Archie Brown now moving down to third, and Ryan Taylor-Truman often there or thereabouts, this time making sure that his car is on tip-top form. And you can see the difference that that's making in this final here. Ryan Taylor-Truman never been questioned for quality of his driving. 34.43 by Teddy Clinton is scintillatingly quick. Across the line we go then, the sun setting just in front of me. Not really completely setting just yet, but you can see it beginning to go down now. Hopefully, I don't think there's too many parts of the circuit where the drivers are actually heading directly towards the sun there. Hopefully no vision impairment for the drivers. Teddy Clinton is beginning to open up a bit of a gap, though. 0.64 in the second now between himself and Ryan Taylor-Truman. It was the end of the last lap anyway. Across the line we go. Gap between Clinton and Ryan Taylor-Truman now 0.64. They set identical lap time. 34.33s all round. 34.45 by Archie Brown is a little bit slower, so that will help the top two to get away that little bit more. Josh Poulain, Brandon Haig, Maciej Hamera, Dominic Cousins still all with a running of potentially spoiling the party at the very top. Brandon Haig was winner last time out in the final. He's able to replicate a similar result here. That would be arguably even more impressive to that dominant display in round 7. First, second, third and fourth beginning to peel away a little bit now. Joshua Poulain is now 0.6 of a second behind Brandon Haig, so he'll have some doing to try and close that gap. Poulain, Hamera, Cousins and Halliday all very close together, and Reese Hurd only 0.5 of a second behind after brilliant first lap, gaining 8 places. He's only gained 1 since then, Reese Hurd. Still a very impressive drive from the first few corners though. Dominic Cousins and Lewis Halliday fighting their way past Maciej Hamera on that previous lap. There's another overtake as well as the number 59, I think it might be Hurd going past Hamera actually. The top 4 though, is anyone going to stop Teddy Clinton? Ryan Taylor-Truman has got into that position but hasn't looked likely to really close in on the number 45. Haig is quicker than Brown ahead of him. That could be a change soon for third place, but with the reduced final times, 3 minutes and 20 seconds, there may not be a huge amount of time left for each of these drivers. It's pretty good for Teddy Clinton to claim the victory here, that's for sure. Joshua Poulain ahead of Dominic Cousins and Lewis Halliday. Those 3, 5th, 6th and 7th. And then 8th and 9th, Reese Hurd and Maciej Hamera. Out of the top end, and Teddy Clinton in the number 45 crosses the line with the fastest lap of the race being a 34.19. He's only 300ths quicker than that effort which he's mustered by himself. It really does look the real deal. Teddy Clinton, next quickest driver after him is Brandon Haig, a 34.37 I think. No, it's the 34.26 actually set by Taylor-Truman. So top 2 are on paper the quickest 2. And indeed, I'll look up and that gap is significantly bigger, but that's a spin there for the number 14 who unfortunately looked the wrong way. He's able to rejoin, thankfully. Doesn't make any contact with the tyre wall. A relatively low speed collision that one, thankfully. William Ellsworth setting the quickest lap time there. That's fairly unexpected from 10th place. The number 79, a 34.16. That's 300 better than the race leader's best effort. So brilliant from Ellsworth. Let's hope he can pick up a few more positions. Third, fourth across the line. Across the line now goes Ellswood, your new quickest driver out there. He's closing in on Reese Hurd, closed in by nearly 0.4 of a second there. Maybe just needed some clear air to really show what he could have done, and once again with a slightly longer final, who knows what we could have seen from William Ellswood, but I don't think it's going to result in much of a higher position than maybe 7th here if he really does push on. Teddy Clinton just doesn't look like there's any stopping in here in the Senior Max final. Often we do see these gaps begin to form in the Senior Max final. It's brilliant racing and brilliant pace from a lot of the drivers involved, but often we do see drivers at their front just start to drift away from the rest of the pack. That dominance begins to show. Well, it looks like we've got 4 retirements so far. Amelia Vincent, Dan Burt, Spencer Shinner and Elliot Hall, unfortunately, all out of the running. So we're down from 30 to 26 drivers, still in the hunt for their highest possible position. I think for Teddy Clinton, though, it's going to be a pretty unrivaled run to the finish. Ryan Taylor Truman now 1.4 seconds behind. Then it's a further 2-second gap back to Brandon Haig, who's on very similar pace to Taylor Truman, actually. Archie Brown in 4th position, racing well, but didn't quite have the pace that the top 2 had in abundance, especially in the middle section of this race. Dominic Cousins in 5th, with Lewis Halliday in 6th place. Across the line now are Brown and then Cousins, Halliday are very close together. Just 0.2 of a second separating those two. Could yet see an overtake perhaps by Lewis Halliday to get himself into the top 5. William Ellswood up to 7th. I said the best he'd probably get would be 7th place, and he has now pushed himself up into that place, so fair play to him. Clearly has a lot of pace. He'll be looking to try and carry that on into round 9 next month. And that is the checkered flag for Teddy Clinton. A dominant display, a little fist pump, slightly subtle celebration from Teddy Clinton, but a race I'm sure he is absolutely delighted with. Controlled from start to finish and beats Ryan Taylor Truman to the line by 1.63 seconds. Brandon Haig in 3rd, Archie Brown in 4th, 5th Lewis Halliday, who does get ahead of Dominic Cousins right at the end there. William Ellswood in 7th, 8th goes to Reese Hurd, 9th Sam Stansbury, and Joshua Poulain drops to 10th in the end. He'll be disappointed with that. Maciej Hamera finishing in 11th place in the number 11 kart. Thomas Rotherham 12th, 13th Owen Allison, Tom Adams 14th. So Adams winner of the B final, climbing all the way up from 27th to finish 14th. Louis Barker 15th, 16th goes to Tiernan Rourke with Ethan Ling 17th, 18th Alex Bentley, 19th Derek Hunt with Daniel Yates 20th, Ben Page, Joseph Hawkwood, Thomas Amsit, Zachary Arthur, Jack Maidment and Elliot Pickard, the remainder of your finishing drivers. And as I mentioned, those 4 drivers who didn't make it to the end of the race, 6, 7, 13 and 14 laps. Each of those drivers retired, but Teddy Clinton with a dominant victory at the end of the 8th round of the 2020 championship here at Clay Pigeon Raceway. Thanks as always for coming. If you want to re-listen to some of the commentary with the Alpha timing accompaniments, you can check out the Clay Pigeon Kart Club YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe while you're there and like us on Facebook as well to stay up to date with every piece of useful information that you could imagine over on Facebook. So thank you as always to all the marshals and officials, all team members and drivers for making these events possible, and big thank you of course to the ambulance medical crew as always. And I'll see you next month for round 9 of the 2020 championship. I've been your commentator Sam Hunt. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all next month. Take care.